Okay, we haven't done a video in a couple days. This update, a lady on close to where their dad lives lets us get some sleep in our yard sometimes. And a friend of hers also gave us a little bit of money. That was really nice. There's also a couple that keeps following us around the neighborhood. I'm not sure, and I'm not gonna say following us, but they keep popping up at the perfect time with like a pizza. Like when we're really hungry, like they keep just showing up suddenly with like food. It's almost as if they're like, hey, did I hear pizza? Here you go. We're like, oh my god, like I was starving all day. It's pretty awesome. We had a crazy day. Was it last week, T? Whatever day, the last day when the buses were free up here. Apparently, like, alright, so we were staying down at the pier a lot, and that's where the police officers told us to go, by the way. But that's where the drug users go, and this one guy was trying to, like, I guess cling to us a little bit and trying to like be part of the group. And I'm like, this isn't The Walking Dead, we're not gonna fight zombies together. Anyway, we kind of heard another guy down there saying he was using crack, and we decided to keep our distance because we don't really want to be hanging out with people that are doing drugs. And this new guy that we met was a little off his rocker. Like, I mean, like talking a mile a minute and saying like, hey, I know you guys, I know what you can say, you go talk to this guy. It was an insane amount of energy, a little much. And so we decided to take the buses the one day to avoid those guys. And we went to a different city. And when we got to the other city, we're walking down the street, and what do you know? It was that guy. And he comes running up the street with a cart. And he's like, hey, it's you guys from last night. Here you go. And hands us like a full chicken and a pint of ice cream. And we're like, thank you. Where'd you get a full chicken from? He's like, I take what I want. And I was like, okay. So there's this random guy who's high on probably crack, and he's like stealing out of the supermarket. I guess nobody messed with him because he had a full cart of food. Anyway, so we avoid it, like, but somehow we get away from him anyway. Go up the street, and we went up there to charge our phones, by the way, and we weren't able to because it was too late. Stores were closed, so we end up waiting at a bus stop, and this other gentleman comes to the bus stop, and he's talking to us a little bit, and my kids told me he was drunk. I didn't realize that he was drunk at the time. After they told me that, I was like, you know what, that makes sense. So we gave him the bench because he was an older gentleman, and we're sitting behind him talking, and all of a sudden we hear thump. So turn around, and the man fell over sideways on the bench because he fell asleep. So we ended up having to call an ambulance for him and help hold something on his head because his head cracked open, and we were like holding cloth there to like put pressure on it to keep him from like bleeding. And the ambulance showed up and everything. They said thank you, and I was like, I guess we were supposed to come out here today because if we weren't here, this guy would have fell over by himself. Who knows what would have happened. We get back on the bus and we're driving home, and guess who shows up on the bus again? We see this cart come up the doorway, and like he kind of like threw it into the first seat, and he's talking a mile a minute to the bus driver, and then he comes and he's like, hey, it's you guys again, and like sits down next to us and hands us each a monster, and then he's like, you guys are coming to my house tonight, we're all gonna smoke crack. And I was like, no we're not. And as soon as we could, we got off the bus. The funny thing is we haven't seen that guy since then, but he did tell us about a shelter we could go into, and we're actively not going to go into that shelter because that's where he is and a couple of the other guys that we're trying to avoid up here. So we've been staying in the nicer area, but unfortunately, in order to stay in the nicer area, you have to be harassed by the police officers up here. And the neighborhood people keep calling the cops on us for weird things like looking suspicious, and which really irritates me. So I have a big mouth, so I've been kind of walking around, and I'm getting on my kids' nerves because every time we walk up a street, I'm like, let's go look suspicious in the park, or Oh, look, I'm looking suspicious because I'm looking at a car. Like, I don't know. I don't understand what they're calling the police for. We were honestly just, like the last time, we were just sitting down. We weren't even in the park. We were in the park's parking lot because we were trying to warm up with the sun coming up, because honestly, it gets freezing overnight, like absolutely freezing now. We were starting to use blankets. And we were just sitting there. Like, we weren't bothering anybody, we weren't talking to anybody, we weren't looking at anybody. We weren't near anything. I had tarot cards out. I was looking at my tarot cards, and my kids were looking at phones. But apparently that's suspicious, and the police officer took our name down again. So now they have our names probably about 5 times. And I'm getting really sick and tired of being harassed by the police up here, and I think it's ridiculous that the neighbors keep calling the police just because they don't want to look at us. Basically that's it. Any updates, we'll be back. And I still need to finish that story and fill you guys in on the first 2 parts of why we're out here in the first place. Alright, that's it. Thank you.